the care. What is it called? I already forgot. Gender affirming care. I already forgot the name. I had brain fart. So the person was a dude who thought they were a female. Parents accepted the delusion right before he turned 18. Pumped with probably a bunch of drugs, which I also believe has something to do with it. And then he wrote on the gun, "Where is your God?" and decided to go to a school that he had gone to go shoot up kids while they were praying. So, like, I'm not saying that all trans are like this, because that's just wrong. But I am going to say that there is some type of, like, something. I mean, Christians will say it's demonic possession. I'm not going to call it that. I'm just going to say there's something evil when people go through that, like, transition. Because, like, how many drugs are you pumping? Like, how are these doctors able to give these people those amount of drugs without, like, realizing that you're giving them, like, a cocktail of chemicals, and you don't know how their brain's going to react to it, and then at the same time, they did what they did. I think the guy got killed right afterwards. So it's like, but it's not going to bring those kids back. It's not going to bring people back. And it's like, when is the health organizations going to realize that this is not working? Like,
so I'm going to say a story for your audience, if it's okay. And it's part of this is from my clinical practice. There was a client I was seeing who was struggling with major gender identity issues. Major. She was a female, but was dressing like a guy, wanted to change the name to Benny, insisted that they hated themselves, would cry in my office on how they hated themselves. They wished they were more manly. They were too feminine.
Wow.
And their style was they would try to be a guy. And they insisted that they wanted these pills, that this medication that was going to make them more manly. They was going to mess with their hormones, like you say. Well, I told the parents, and I told her, please, you don't say anything that I'm telling you this, but she's way too young for this.
God
She's she's 14 now.
Wow.
And she's way too young for this. You don't know that you never know if she just right now she's identical. And at the time, it was during when things were, I felt like in 2021, it became really, the LGBTQ movement was at its peak. I feel like right now it's fallen off a lot because come on. I mean, it's
yeah.
But it was at its peak. And we worked through it. A lot of times there was a trauma history there. I tried focusing a lot on the trauma history and how to move forward from it. But the person would always bring it back to the gender identity issues. Again, notice, gender identity. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to share more about that later. Well, I told the parents that. Thank God they listened. The dad was very common sense oriented. He was very Hispanic, but he was common sense. He was very involved. He was a good dad. I don't know, it's one thing to be a clinician. I don't know how I would handle that as a dad. I don't know how. I called them once about 5 months later, because they were in clinical practice with me for about 9 months. And I told the dad that after a while, I didn't think that there was much else for me to do. I mean, my goal was not to convince them otherwise, but personally, they were too young, and I just personally didn't support the gender identity change, and I wanted to focus on trauma because I felt like that was more my role with it.
Right.
What do you know?
What?
All of a sudden, they met a boy they like, and all of a sudden, Benny, and I won't say their real name, I'll only say the name that they originally wanted to be called her biological feminine name again. All of a sudden, she was wearing dresses again. Wow. Unbelievable. That told me it's a miracle. I don't know. I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, Benny was being submissive towards this one particular boy that had her again awakening. And so, gender identity. If I say I'm a runner, I'm going to run. If I say I'm a runner and I'm awesome. I'm going to push the limits of what running is. If I say I'm a great reader, I'm going to read. If I say I love reading, I'm going to read the Harry Potter books. Then I'm going to read the Lord of the Rings books. If I say I'm, I don't know, a great psychologist or a therapist, I'm going to do what therapists do. I'm going to read psychological books. So the identities that we give ourselves say so much. Mm-hmm. If I say I'm depressed, then I'm going to be depressed all the time. And I'm going to say I struggle with depression. This is my and it's a crutch. Mm-hmm. So the identities we choose are so strong. And with this LGBTQ movement, I feel a lot of people have grabbed onto this identity. For a while, I felt like between 2017 to 2021, which feels like just yesterday, everybody was now a pansexual. Yep. Everybody was now, and I'm not making fun of them. I'm just saying, technically, by the definitions they were giving, which a pansexual is, I don't see people for their body. I see them for who they are inside, and I fall in love. Right? That's the pansexual thing. I used to tell people I'm technically kind of a pansexual too then, and I wouldn't say I was but I'm saying like, I see people for who they are and stuff, but I do give importance to biological factors, of who I like. I'm not but I was making fun of it, and not making fun of them, but just saying like, why? I mean, all of us are a little pansexual, aren't we?
Exactly.
Identities are so important. I feel like the LGBTQ movement, what happened with Charlie Kirk, I know you haven't asked me directly, but the person was part, I think in the end or not in the end because they're still investigating, but there's some talks that he was part of Antifa, some Antifa movement, LGBTQ, this and that, and because he wrote on the shells, like he was able to carve out some Antifa chants or like something part of their song, and he identified with it. And it goes, I hate to say it, it goes back to the old saying, who you surround yourself with, you kind of become. Mm-hmm. And if I've never seen you before, if I've never even know how you look like, I don't know anything about you, but I meet the 5 people that you spend the most time with, I will in my mind be able to form a profile about you. It's natural, and it'll say a lot. And I'm sure I'll be wrong on a lot of things, but I'll also be right on a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And the identities that we create for ourselves is psychological. They're illusionary, but they tie into something way deeper that goes with our purpose.